Shake and bake. We
We are
are
live.
live
The
talking
Nutritional
about
Edge.
gorillas and pea protein and IBS and inflammation. We're back. What can we say?
It's a
Sup,
good
sup,
intro.
sup.
Yes,
I gotta mix it up every once in a while. We had you do the intro last time.
I did.
Um,
Nutritional Edgians. I don't know that's gonna
nutritionally
stick.
edgings. No, I don't know either. I don't know if I'm very confident that's gonna stick. Not quite sure
Unlikely.
about that. What will stick though is all the stuff we've been talking about this month because it's been actually really good.
Yeah.
I've probably been some of our best topics and flows so far. Kind of wild we've been doing this for 16 weeks. Already 16
Wow.
episodes in. I know.
That's good.
Yeah, we're about a month away from hitting that 21. It's
We got to do
crazy.
something. We got to start doing some like giveaways or something for the big ones like 50 and 100 and stuff. That would be
Mm,
good.
Maybe
Some
give away an
giveaways.
MRT test or
Yeah,
some neurologic scans.
be really good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
eventually we gotta start getting those coaching calls dialed in.
Mm-hmm.
That would be
Lots,
legit.
lots ahead for the Nutritional Edge. More workshops, more challenges in the future.
Yes, yep, they'll be getting ripped out and presented to all y'all. And of course, a lot of that stuff is gonna be probably involved and related with what we have going on today,
Mm,
which is inflammation. A
yes.
nice, big, exciting buzzword. Oh, I have
Yes.
inflammation. Is inflammation just from getting hit by a baseball in the shoulder or and
Mm,
rolling your ankle? Is that inflammation? Inflammation solely for an injury where we have to take ibuprofen. Um, and I think we're gonna find out that it is not even
mhm.
close,
Yeah.
not at all.
Yeah.
Um, Inflammation and IBS. How the heck are those two connected?
Mm.
How is a digestive bowel disorder associated with inflammation?
Mm. And it's
Let's
not
find out.
classically known as an inflammatory condition to the extent that ulcerative colitis and Crohn's are, which are two really nasty conditions that really have a lot of issues, absorption issues, quality of life issues. Sometimes people have to have parts of their intestines removed. That's kind of like worst case scenario. Those conditions have a lot of inflammation, and they have so much inflammation that when someone goes in with a colonoscopy, they can actually see the tissue damage. It's so visible, you can actually see it. But with IBS, it's the inflammation is to the level of Crohn's and ulcerative colitis and remission. So when IBS is in the flare up, that's when Crohn's and ulcerative colitis are kind of in remission. So there's still inflammation, but it's not so extensive that you can actually see any type of damage. So a lot of times it's kind of swept under the rug, and people aren't talking about inflammation in IBS. It's really interesting. So to me, it's like
So what's the conversation to be had?
well, we've talked about some of the major components, right, with IBS. We talk about the nervous system, which is why this blends so well with me and you, the nervous system and how that controls gut health. The nervous system is jacked up. That is going to be sending signals to the gut, and the gut is going to be doing things we don't want it to do, like move too fast, move too slowly, not release enzymes to break down our food, and vice versa. If our gut health is poor, maybe our microbiome is messed up due to a lot of reasons. Maybe we are eating very poorly, or we're exposed to a lot of chemicals throughout our life, especially like cleaning chemicals, or we even had like we were a C-section baby. There's a lot of different things that can affect our microbiome, and then that can impact our nervous system because even our bacteria play a role in sending signals up to our brain. So you have brain to the gut, gut to the brain, and vice versa. Another component to IBS is inflammation. And inflammation in the context I'm talking about is where our white blood cells are secreting chemicals like histamine that are facilitating what they think is a good thing, but in the long term is actually a bad thing. So you mentioned taking a softball to the shoulder, and I believe you took one to the calf muscle.
I took one to my left shin.
Oh, oh, you have firsthand knowledge of how painful inflammation is. So why did your
Mm.
body? Why does our body cause swelling and all those different things when we get hit by a softball?
Oh, it's a protective mechanism. Because it's what it's trying to do is trying to immobilize that area. It's almost like a natural splint. It's trying to immobilize that area, so then that way it can get starting to work on healing.
Yeah.
I remember there's an acronym. I think it's called SHARP, and I think it's swelling, heat, um, redness, pain. I forget what the A is called. Maybe acute.
Mm,
But those are all signs of inflammation due to an injury, and those processes it's causes pooling of blood, stasis of blood. It's trying to bring in resources. It's also trying to slow anything bad getting out, because what's also happening too with inflammation is a lot of our cells are they're I guess like tearing. It's called lysis, cellular
mm,
lysis. But
right.
what is happening is all of those cellular machinery, all the little organelles and juices and stuff in the cell, it gets bursted. It's like popping
Mm,
a water balloon. And when those get into spaces that they're not supposed to be, it causes inflammation.
mm,
Such as if potassium is in a wrong place, potassium is supposed to be inside of the cell. If it's in other areas that's not supposed to be, that's going to induce inflammatory reactions, including like prostaglandins are an
mhm.
inflammatory molecule. Some kind of kinin, I forget. Man, I'm getting
Mhm.
really nitty gritty with this stuff.
No,
Um,
interleukins, like there's like
yeah,
interleukin 6 and
leukotrienes,
all this different, yeah.
um, yeah, interleukins, yeah, interferons. We have all these different like pathologic little tiny cellular markers,
Mm, yeah.
and those are changing mechanisms occurring in our cells that alters the function of the cell, the expression of genes. That's why a majority of things that are coined genetic are actually
Mm,
epigenetic. It's because of something in our environment. And they're not talking about our yes, it's our external environment that has changed our internal environment, but we also have our cellular environment.
mm,
And if our cellular environment is not in the way that it should be, then it's going to create inflammation in that local environment, and that is now going to multiple organ systems. Now we have systemic inflammation. And then what that's going to do is make our body feel so sick that now we are just a miserable person. And now we are just a walking bowl of inflammation,
mm.
which you don't
Yeah,
want.
right.
So that's a root from like an injurious perspective. And food can injure our gut, which means that
Mm,
our gut can be a site of injury, which
mm,
the product of an injury to our gut due to inflammation from maybe poor food intake can be IBS.
mm. Well said.
Now we have a
Well
link.
said.
Now we have a
Yeah,
link of how inflammation IBS occur.
yeah. Another one of those molecules that is circulating is cytokines, which kind of
That's what it was.
it's almost like they just keep communicating with ourselves to cause more inflammation and more inflammation and more inflammation. So it's like this big surge um, happening, and our capillaries are leaky in the site in
Mm-hmm.
order for more nutrients to flow to the site for healing. So,
Mm-hmm.
like you said, immobilization, maybe pain as a signal of, hey, don't walk on that broken ankle. Um, and hey, you need to get that looked at because there's something wrong. You have nutrients flowing to that damaged site to facilitate healing. But in the chronic space where we don't need that mechanism to continue to happen, that can get really dangerous. And really, most chronic diseases are characterized by inflammation, chronic inflammation, the bad type of inflammation that does not shut off, that is systemic. Heart disease, diabetes, fatty liver disease, you name it, autoimmune diseases all have an inflammatory component. So, if IBS has an inflammatory component and you're missing out on that sphere, then someone's not going to get all the way better. They're going to get somewhat better. I think anyone with IBS that manages their stress will have some type of symptom reduction, but it may not be super significant if it's also a food related problem.
Hmm. How involved and impactful is stress in the process of inflammation and IBS?
Hmm. I think in some cases, since every person is different, every case of IBS is different, that some people stress is the major trigger.
Hmm.
Stress is causing the majority of their symptoms. And that's been shown with research. We talked about an approach where with hypnotherapy, gut-directed hypnotherapy, it showed tremendous improvements. Some of the medications out there that are trying to accomplish that same result are directed at calming down the nervous system, kind of almost like a sledgehammer. They're kind of trying to blunt the impact. The reason being is that our nerves in our gut, if we have IBS, are more sensitive. So we call them hypersensitive. They tend to be more sensitive to pain and the effects of bloating and constipation and diarrhea in IBS than someone without that. So you got a double whammy. Someone with IBS has more digestive bloating and pain and issues. Plus, they experience that to a greater degree. So it can be really miserable for those people.
And so those are for people who they have hypersensitive nerve endings.
Exactly. Yep. Hypersensitive.
Okay.
So that's called visceral hyperalgesia or visceral hypersensitivity. Visceral
Hmm.
meaning our internal organs. We don't typically notice our internal organs. We can't really necessarily feel them. We can't control them. That's our autonomic nervous system. Our heart always beats. And our gut digests food. We don't have to communicate to it. We can change it. And you and I always talk about there's kind of one technique you can do to consciously change your autonomic nervous system, which is
Your breath,
your breath. Yeah, it's good.
our one access point.
That's right.
That's good. Yeah, that makes me that's very interesting actually, because with our scans, and especially the full spine scans that we do, what they illuminate in terms of like blood flow, nerve flow to different regions, different organs of our body, and majority of those um, who have digestive issues, they have shunted blood flow and nerve flow in the region of their thoracic spine and also lumbar spine, which is where nerve endings go off to our organs.
Hmm.
So if they're having shunted blood flow, nerve flow, then they're going to be irritated. They're going to be in a stressed state because they're not getting the blood that they need. They're not getting the nerve supply that they need. Therefore, they're going to be in a stressed state. So they're going to be hyper irritable. And when nerves are in that irritable state, they fire haphazardly.
Hmm.
They fire chaotically. It's not a regulated firing. They have a lower threshold to firing, especially the pain receptors. So the pain receptors have a lower threshold needed in order to fire off an action potential that will register to our brain pain. So it's easier. It's a quick trigger. It's a quick trigger finger when they're in that state, and especially so it's a compounding effect then of altered function, so altered digestion and absorption, where foods we eat, they might not be getting digested and absorbed properly because of altered function. Combo double whammied with these nerves are in irritable state because they're not receiving the supply that they need. Therefore, they have a quick trigger to fire off potentials, to fire off pain signals.
Hmm.
And so now we have the double snowball
Yeah.
of altered, from a neurological perspective, of the altered function, hyper irritable nerves, comboed with the lack of eating poor food, or maybe eating food that is inflammatory unique to that person. Because there are people out there who are smashing blueberries, but yeah, blueberries are not good for that one person. Why? Because of type 3, type 4 hypersensitivities, which is your bread and butter. And so it's Very interesting seeing how those two work. I'm actually pretty glad you brought up that hyperalgesic effect. I haven't thought about that in a while, especially as in regards um, to nerves. Actually, I just started up someone yesterday. His only complaint was high cholesterol.
Hmm.
Only complaint. And I put him on an 18 visit care plan versus a 12 because I was like, okay, that's your only complaint. More likely just 12 because only anything musculoskeletal going on. Then I ran a full spine scan of him, and in his digestive area, his function was not good.
Hmm.
His left and right grafts were shunted way over to the left, and then in the actual delta T neutral graph, which is examining just like which side is getting more blood flow compared to the other, he had a lot more activity blood flow on the left side of his thoracolumbar region versus
Yeah.
his right. And if he's got poor cholesterol, that's a lot of function of pancreas, but also liver, gallbladder, both on the right side, both not receiving blood flow and nerve flow that they would be. So he's
Hmm.
having hyperactivity of organs up here, suppressed stress activity of organs here. Thus, these organs are in a sympathetic state. Thus, they're not going to be able to create HDL
Right.
type cholesterol or good cholesterol. It's going to be more of the bad stuff. So I thought that was a very unique connection of dots.
Yeah,
Very interested to
and
see how that goes.
that's really interesting. And what you said too reminded me how with IBS sometimes people are experiencing pain with or without food. Usually it's when they eat a big meal that they might have extra symptoms. But if they're having random firings of nerve stimulation, I do ask them, I'm like, when do you feel your best? Do you wake up in the morning and feel good? They usually, if they feel significantly better after some fasting period, it's more than likely a bacterial issue. But if they're just like, it comes and goes and it's random, sounds like nervous system, sounds like inflammation. And if they're like, I have IBS symptoms after guest speaking or every morning when I go to work or in traffic, of course, that sounds more of like a stress related issue. Um,
That's a great question to ask people and ask yourself. I might start mixing that in. What time of day do you feel your best? And after what XYZ do you feel your worst?
mm-hmm.
Mm,
Yeah. A lot of people
that's
are
good.
too disassociated from their bodies and too stressed out, too distracted with busy life to even notice. They have no idea. So maybe the first step is just to notice. If they say, I don't know, hey, just for tomorrow, notice how you feel throughout the day. Notice any kind of correlation, and then check the next day. And if they're noticing the same issues, yeah, it's a good one. It's just bringing that mindfulness alone is its own therapeutic approach. Whole research protocols have been done just on mindfulness, improving IBS symptoms, improving eating patterns. Because when you notice
Hmm.
when you're full and when you're hungry, or what you're really craving, that 10th bite of ice cream is not as good as the first, you might stop.
Dopamine centers getting saturated. That's yeah, that's super good. I mean, I've said it multiple times that how you think dictates how you feel, but also how you feel dictates how you think. So if you're in an environment that's going to be stressing you out, that's going to cause a negative neurochemical relay to your gut, and that's going to affect your function of your microbiome. That's just going to affect how much inflammatory mediators are being circulating around in those serous environments, whether it stays in your gut or even gets to your bloodstream, and then you're going to be feeling worse. Therefore, you're going to think worse. And so we're going to try and we're going to seek comfort in that moment. We're going to go and seek comfort, typically in the form of comfort food. It's
Mm,
an easy one. And now we're in a vicious snowball of, okay, I don't feel good. Therefore, I want to eat some kind of comfort food. Now I'm going to eat something not healthy for me. Now I'm going to eat something not healthy for me. Therefore, I'm going to get more inflammation, more IBS like symptoms in my body. Now I really don't feel good. Now I really don't think good because I'm sick. Therefore, I'm going to go seek more comfort food. This is also how pharmaceuticals and the food industry profits off of us because it keeps us in this cycle of don't think good, therefore seek comfort food, which is stuff on our grocery shelves. Then seek comfort, don't feel good, because it's bad for us. Therefore, my gut's jacked up. Now I don't feel good. Therefore, I'm sick. Now I get pills. Now I get pills. Now I'm not thinking good because I am on pills. So I see comfort. Now I go back to the grocery store and get the thing that got me sick in the first place.
Hmm. Yeah.
It's
And
very
we're so
profitable.
very profitable. When we're so tired that we can't grow our own food, maybe from a nice little victory garden in our yard, we're gonna be very reliant on fast processed food because we're just so tired. And food is always a reward. We always look forward to food. That's how we reward
Mm.
ourselves is with junk food, and we get that quick dopamine hit. And commercials, of course, soda commercials. Like I just think of like Coca-Cola commercials or Sprite commercials where people are having a great time, crack open. Just gotta associate that. They're very good, very good
Yeah.
at getting us fixated on that. And then
Mm.
with our, IBS is, I usually think of intestinal problems with IBS because of
Mm.
bacteria and inflammation. But that can travel up. Those issues compound themselves, especially with like constipation, and that's going to cause pressure and issues and even bacterial translocation up. And so
Mm.
you're noticing maybe the problems begin lower down in the GI tract, but then it starts to creep up, and all of a sudden people are noticing acid reflux and heartburn. They're noticing heart palpitations. We're we're all connected. The GI tract is one long tube, and then we have all these ancillary organs, and the nervous system is integrated and innervated in all of them. And so, what I see most commonly, I'm sure you see too, is where people will be fine for a really long time, and all of a sudden it's like all these conditions pop up, and or they start to get worse. They're like, not only are their IBS symptoms bad, but now they have acid reflux and they're hoarse all the time. It's a mess.
Hmm. Yeah, for the most. So when a lot of symptoms arise, is when we lost 80% of function,
Hmm. Hmm.
which means we've had an underlying functional issue going on for probably a significant amount of time, probably since we were a teenager.
Yeah.
Didn't address it, and now in our 40s and 50s, we have symptoms, and we wonder, oh, it just began a week ago. I started getting acid reflux a week ago. It just started a week ago. The underlying issue was there for far, far longer. More
Hmm.
than likely, either due to some kind of stress out on more than likely something with a gut brain connection, either whether it's gut function or nervous system function or a combo of the both. And we have that is going to reduce overall function of our body in the long run.
I think of
Autumn.
diabetes and autoimmune disease, especially
Hmm.
with that losing function. And with
Right.
autoimmune disease, they don't just magically appear. We think that there's a genetic predisposition, possibly. There may be some type of trigger, stress, viral, etc., environmental. And then there's this cascade of issues. And then with diabetes, we lose 60% of our pancreatic function upon diagnosis. So by the time we're diagnosed with something like type 2 diabetes, we can't even produce the insulin to manage it, much less get the insulin into our cells. Use the insulin as a key to unlock the cells where glucose can go in. So, man, that's kind of
But
scary when you think about that, waiting too long and then your function is depleted.
that's the tough part too. Diabetes is they wait until your blood sugar hits a certain threshold in order to say you have diabetes, even
Yeah,
though the decline in function has been occurring for about 10 to 14 years prior. They don't recommend any kind of health changes to mitigate this trajectory that you're on until you've hit a certain arbitrary average
yeah.
set by the government or American Medical Association of what actually coined someone diabetic,
Hmm.
and the reason why they shouldn't be doing uh, the reason why that they don't mitigate that is because I mean, frankly, they just say, "Oh, you're pre-diabetic, therefore you're still good," or it's like you
Yeah,
have fatty liver, so you're still good,
yeah.
or you have I mean, you have all these underlying things,
Mm,
and a lot of times too is you have your stress level exceeds your tolerance to stress, now you become symptomatic. That's a
And
big hiccup with it.
no one wants to be the bearer of bad news.
No.
There are definitely providers out there that are nervous about telling a patient you have diabetes. And I think people too, we want to look for the positives. We want to hear what we want to hear. So if it's pre-diabetes, okay, I don't have diabetes. I'm probably good for how long now? Instead of, this is a sign that you're probably going to get type 2 diabetes. And it's not too late to make changes, but it's not looking good. That's the reality of the situation. But that's a hard thing to hear. Fatty liver disease, you could have potential for cirrhosis in rare cases, but most of the time, if people aren't being proactive, then nothing changes. And all we hear is what we want to hear is like, oh, that's really common. And I think we've gotten so accustomed to the normal. You know, we're a part of Happier, Healthier Arkansas. We're what, 47th, somewhere 47th in the
49
49th. I know it was somewhere in that 49th out
in
of
overall
50.
health.
Oh gosh. I believe last time I was told gestational diabetes was number one in the nation, and maternal mortality in pregnancy, I believe, complications of pregnancy were number one in the nation. Diabetes is way up there. Heart disease, stroke, heart attacks, way up there. And yeah, I'm tired of that being the normal. Almost 1 in 2 people now, almost 1 in 2 American adults have prediabetes. It used to be 1 in 3. 1 in 10 have type 2 diabetes. Half of those people haven't been diagnosed with it yet. It's way too frequent. These are largely preventable conditions, and yeah, preventable conditions is stuff we're going to talk about all the time for sure. IBS is an interesting one for me because we know so much about the condition that our conventional process frustrates me. It's almost like we're treating IBS like we have no idea what we're doing. Like IBS, let's do a colonoscopy, no findings. Let's do the food allergy test, no findings. Okay, here's your proton pump inhibitor. See you in 4 months. Sometimes people will come in and they literally have nothing. They have no idea what to tell them. They'll just be like, come back in 4 months, hoping that it'll just, I guess, go away. Or they have nothing to tell them. But we have so much research and information about IBS. And with inflammation, obviously, we're going to talk about the mediator release test frequently because it's a great way to measure inflammation that's individualized. And the majority of research on this food sensitivity test is on IBS. So we have stuff out there. There's approaches, there's treatments, but it doesn't seem like we're making as much headway. People don't know about these approaches.
No, and tough part too is that it's just like starting from ground zero and trying like to reverse the snowball and focusing. Like if you want to make that big change, that big switch, it takes work.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
takes work. And you
and
gotta,
momentum
and
too.
it,
Let's do. It's
yeah.
like you said, the momentum of the food industry and marketing and dumb regulations and things like that, and just kind of this mentality of being sick. We need to get that momentum rolling the other direction. Is you have this condition, we got you. Like we know exactly what we're going to try, and if this doesn't work, we've got another backup. We're going to do everything in our power to stop that. And then you tell your friend, "Oh, I can manage IBS. I saw Dr. Chris and Nathan and all of the people in our network."
Yeah. With especially when it comes to these types of like long-term type diagnoses, you're not your diagnosis.
Yes.
That is not who you are. A lot of people will find their identity in their diagnosis, and then they get stuck in the victim mindset. But B, a lot of the stuff is within our control, and that's and some of it is a lot. I really think a lot of this stuff, what gets us into these habits in the first place, is either um, just pure, just like I didn't know, like I didn't know any better. Um, I guess that is like kind of like ignorance in a sense, just because if you didn't know, you didn't know any better. Um, but B, a lot of it is your own like just lack of discipline of being consistent with seeing that long game and a really good frame of mind. There's just two things I want to hit on. A really good frame of mind, a good doctor to listen to is called Dr. Peter Attia. He's a longevity health doctor specialist. He's been featured on a couple of podcast episodes of Modern Wisdom, which is probably my favorite podcast to listen to. I learn a ton from the specialists and professionals they have on there. But he'll ask someone, what do you want to be true by the end of your life? In the last decade of your life, what do you want to be true? And ask them that. And so we can play this game right now even. So if I ask you this, Nathan, like what do you want to be true in your last decade of life? What things pop up immediately?
Well, I want to be in my right mind, if all possible. I don't want to
Okay.
have cognitive decline. I want to be functional. I want to be able to get up, move around. I also want to be mobile and generally able to do all the things and open a cabinet, reach for something.
Yeah.
I want to be able to be pleasant. I don't want to just be like in pain all the time, complaining. I want to be able to be able to provide things to other people. I want to at that point be giving most of the time, and generativity is what I want to practice for sure during that stage, versus people having to take care of me all the time.
So let me ask you this. And so you said that. So a couple of things. So you said that you wanted your cognitive function, so you want to be able to think correctly. So like not have Alzheimer's or Parkinson's or cognitive decline. So then if you want to stay sharp, what are things that need to be done? How do you fix cognitive decline? I have both of these always in pain from Tracy. Well, Tracy, you're listening to the two right people. Looking in the comment section right now, Ashley Howell said, Chris Brown, Nathan, how do you fix cognitive decline? How do you fix decline? That is really a lot of brain health, brain function type conversations. And really it comes down to like if you look at all of these health practitioners that are getting involved in the like longevity game and the health span game, medicine tries to medicine is really, really good at addressing fast death. So it's really good at addressing, I'm in an immediate acute scenario right now where I could like die in 2 hours. Medicine is incredible at that and it's critical for it and it's necessary. That is what medicine is good at. The issue that is going on right now in our medical world and our medical model is that medicine is trying to apply that type of care in a slow death game. We're in a world of slow death where people begin having symptoms in their 30s or 40s and they're using medicine to mitigate the slope of the rate of decline instead of having it be a steep crash down. That's having it be a more of a prolonged, which is why we're still able to live into our 70s and 80s, but the actual quality of life is not what it used to be in our 20s. That's what medicine is mitigating that decline. And therefore it's also allowing us to not have to take ownership of our own behaviors.
Yeah, it's almost always shutting something off, right? In the rare cases like type 1 diabetes where you can't produce insulin, it's life-saving. We have to have the hormone insulin. But yeah, I mean most medication is not fixing a problem necessarily or fixing a deficiency. It's just stopping a bodily function. So if that's a proton pump inhibitor, it's telling those proton pumps to stop producing as much stomach acid. So it's usually stopping something.
What digests our food? Stomach acid.
Yeah, we really need that. And then
we need that a lot.
And yeah, I was thinking about like brain-derived neurotropic factor. I don't know if I said that right. For cognitive decline. I mean, I always think about physical activity being just huge for preventing and reducing cognitive decline. I think about reducing inflammation through a healthy diet, helping to avoid our body from creating those beta amyloid plaques, which are in our brain and are a huge underlying cause of Alzheimer's. And I think we've talked about Alzheimer's as like a type 3 diabetes before, where having insulin resistance is also going to impact your brain function. And we don't want to be socially isolated. Social isolation is one of the most profound um, markers for how long someone's going to live. And um, playing chess, Sudoku, keeping your mind active, all those different things are some of the tried and true ways of preventing cognitive decline.
Yep, absolutely. So there's a book actually called Biohacking Your Brain. It's written by a German neurophysicist, and it is an incredible book. It breaks down to easy action steps, but really when you have all these practitioners, and I say the same stuff, and Nathan says the same stuff, it's all just said in a different way. There's 5 components that we need to focus on. There's like 5 categories. First one is exercise, movement. Second one is nourishment, nutrition. Third one is recovery, regeneration, sleep. Fourth one is mental well-being, mindset, mental health. Fifth one is function. All 5 of those. That is what that is essentially the recipe. Those are the 5 pillars. Those is your health house. The first 4, you're capable, and really all 5, you're capable of addressing and tending to those at home. Just knowing what to do. If you have difficulty addressing those at home, or if your at-home stuff isn't working, then there might be some underlying things, and that's where practitioners become involved. So how do you fix cognitive decline? This doesn't just go for cognitive decline, but this really goes for a lot of just chronic health issues overall. You can't just tend to one. You can't do one of them and expect to just brush the others off and expect you to get well. It has to be all 5. How do you work all 5 pillars when they're broken? One step at a time.
Yeah.
It's just it's a frame of mind of I'm going to build as wide of a foundation as possible and as tall of a foundation as possible for each of them. And it just starts with just consistent like chipping away at each thing. So for me, how I address it, I try to address all 5 of those things either to start my day or end my day, is focusing inherently on those. So for example, I have a personal rule where every morning I'm going to get my heart rate up. I'm not tied to I'm going to go walk a mile or I'm going to go work out for 40 minutes. I'm just tied to the rule of I'm going to get my heart rate up every morning. Nathan sent me a text a couple of days ago saying that 30 to 40% of our cortisol is released in the morning, something like that. Or like
50 to 60 within the first 30 to 40 minutes. Isn't that
right?
crazy?
And that's the correct time for cortisol to be released. When cortisol is released outside of that time window, it is then inflammatory. When cortisol is released within that window, it is productive. It's healthy. That's what we want.
Yeah.
And so to amplify that release, that's part of the reason why I exercise in the morning. It's because it's staying within that. So then ideally the rest of the day, my cortisol levels are going down. I shouldn't be that stressed the rest of the day if I already just did the most stressful thing, which is put my body through something, get my heart rate up. But think of it like as an ingredient to a recipe, and everyone has their own recipe. That's why some people like more yoga, or some people like more golf or walking or cycling. You also have to find like the enjoyment, the mental enjoyment in it. I also think there needs to be a little bit of mental fitness with it, where you got to do something to where your mind is literally saying, I don't want to do this, or your body is saying, I need you to stop, but your mind's like, we can do a little bit more. And a lot of it is mental. The nourishment, the nutrition, you want to be hyper on point with that, get the MRT test. That's easy. That way you're not guessing. I think the worst thing you can do with this stuff is guess. The more objective you can be, even if you just have to face the facts, and some of those facts might hurt and they might suck. That's the real way to track if you're going in the direction you're going. Some people just think, oh, I think I'm making money. And you check your bank account and you're at the same exact plan. It's making deposits. It's making input deposits that are going to result in the fruits that you hope and envision yourself being, which is really hard to do because it's so separated and it's such a long game to play. But once you start having all of these things going in and getting consistent movement and eating good stuff that's correct for you and figuring out a sleep routine that allows you to go to bed, be able to fall asleep on time and stay asleep and get your 8 hours of, and also noticing if you're getting your REM sleep and deep sleep correctly and how your heart rate variability is and actually like tracking all this stuff for your mental well-being. If you you can, I mean, there's a ton of stuff to do for mental well-being. We talk a lot about breath work, um, being like breath work, mindfulness, praying, meditating, reading, journaling,
Hmm.
being outside in nature. Yeah, walking barefoot is actually really good for you. Getting in water, getting in
Mhm.
the elements of the earth. Community is a big one. Having in person interaction versus stuff over a screen. Like we want
Mhm.
to be able to do this stuff in person. It's a little bit difficult for us feasibly week to week, but Nathan and I do intend on doing like intensives, like a Friday, Saturday intensive where we can actually get way more personalized and actually create roadmap and plans for people. Um, and then function, like all of those tie into function. If we are moving consistently, that's addressing a bunch of hormones, neurochemicals, brain stimulation. If we're eating correctly, that's also creating a bunch of neurotransmitters, serotonin, dopamine, norepinephrine. How we digest stuff, how we sleep, that's where our hormones are made, is when we sleep. Our mental, how we think, like if I think in an anxious stress state, that immediately changes the biochemistry and the neuromodulators that are being expressed within my body. Those all function. How you can address that, that's where like cold showers, I think, come into play big time. um that's, I mean, all those, like, nature is big for our nervous system, like just doing yeah, you can't just do one thing.
Hmm.
Please shared when you started doing in-person events, we're glad you joined. Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
Yeah.
Probably looking at being able to roll those out, um maybe come June or so.
Yeah.
I
Yeah. I
think.
think
I
so. It'll
think.
be good.
Yeah. I think we really just need to just rip the band off and just do it.
Hmm. Yeah. That's
Um,
gonna be so good. Yeah, man. That's got me thinking all these things. But that's really good. I love too of a simple habit can create momentum in a lot of those categories. So, for instance, if we are taking a walk in the evening, rather than just talking to our spouse, sitting down watching Netflix, one less episode, go get out, walk. You're gonna sleep a little bit better. You're gonna wake up and maybe be hungry enough for a good breakfast instead of just skipping it or whatever, eating a donut. You're gonna be like, well, I walked, so I don't know that I want to eat that and throw that off. Eat better, feel better, sleep better the next day.
mhm,
So even just a little thing um, can have a
mhm.
big impact.
Yep. It starts to just picking up the pieces, picking up the pieces, um, and it's adding. It's a substitution. It's, I have this maybe one bad habit of I don't exercise, and you're changing it with I now won't go on walks.
Yeah,
This one bad habit of I drink soda every meal, and you just change it with now I drink water with electrolytes in it. And
yeah,
it's a it's a give take kind of thing. Um, and then you'll find that once you start doing the new thing, the healthier thing, over and over and over again, that's what your body starts to crave.
mm,
And you get a change in what your nervous, like what your body wants from a dopaminergic standpoint and kind of like an addictive standpoint. Um, and then your body craves that kind of
yeah,
release or energy that it gets. Um, but it
yeah.
just,
That happens
go ahead.
with food. Like I just made this bok choy recipe, and I rarely, if ever, maybe have ever made that. It was so good, and I'm like, now next time that's on the menu, that's not like an experiment. Like I don't know how this is gonna turn out. It's that was really good, and yeah, that's how Madison and I have eaten a lot healthier over the years. We just keep getting healthier and healthier recipes because we're like, I'm tired of just making the same stuff over. Let's try this, figure out what we do like. And now, like a lot, very, very often, um, be like, should we go out to eat? Like, we want to save money, and we look and we're like, well, I can make this. We're like, that sounds great, actually. I've had this. This is good. Hone your cooking skills. It's a
Yes.
worthwhile use of your time.
Mm-hmm.
So give up 10 minutes of your screen time. Put 10 more minutes towards an easy recipe, and or even just like a snack for the week. Boil some eggs. Put together some trail mix that's healthy. You're gonna thank yourself for 5 days of the week for the 10 minutes you just put in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have a rule of thumb. Overall, for all the 5 pillars, I love just controlling my variables.
Mm.
I just want to control my variables itself. And stemming from that, in terms of food, I really focus on 3 things. First one is, did it come out of the ground? If it didn't, don't eat it. If the second one is, does it have more than 5 ingredients? If it does, don't eat it. And then third one, does it have a word that I can't pronounce? If it does, don't eat it. And just by following those 3 simple frames, it eliminates so much thought of what to get in the grocery store. Because it's like, I pretty much am in the produce section, I'm in the meat section, I'm getting eggs, I'm getting yogurt and kefir, and then going home. I don't have to worry about like looking at crackers and snacks and bread and sauces and all this stuff. It's just those little things. And I wish I knew that when I was playing baseball in college. I wish, like, the only thing I knew in college was exercise, movement. I understood lifting because we had mandatory weights 3-4 times a week. That was the only thing I did correctly. I ate like crap. I slept like crap. Nowhere close to how I think now. And I did nothing for my function. I was for sure in a state of nervous system dysfunction all the time.
My favorite thing I heard from athletes before was like, I don't need all this fiber. It's just like weighing me down. It's useless. I don't eat fruits and vegetables. Completely missing out on all of the nutrients and anti-inflammation and honestly, improved athletic ability and enhanced cognition and everything else that these foods do. They're like, I want. It's just like watery. I don't know. I don't need all that water content. There's no nutrition in there, or something like that. What are you talking about? No, you should still eat fruits and vegetables.
And start tiny and work your way up.
Yeah,
it's a marathon, not a sprint when it comes to this stuff. It's and like you really don't see the fruits of it. Like, a great frame of mind to be in, Ashley, is like, what am I doing now that's setting me up 6 months from now? What am I doing right in this moment that is setting me up? So like, what you're doing right now in this moment is you're learning this stuff from us, and you probably won't see the fruits of, if you implement anything, until 6 months from now, which is October. So it's like, can you extend that far on the horizon into October and see yourself in that, which I know you can because you've been under care with Cam. And so you signed up for that. And it's like, can you do that again with yourself at home? And you can have the mental creation of like what you think that might look like, what that plan might be, and okay, how am I going to do this for 6 months? And this is what it's going to take, and I can do that. And then you know, people will fail at day 4, and you have the mental. You have two to every actual thing. It took 2 things. It took the mental creation, and then you took the actual act of doing the thing. And the act of doing the thing is you following through with the thought that you could, which is integrity. And if you're able to actually follow through and execute that thing, sticking to you in 6 months where you want to be at, I think if you really hone in on that, then you'll find that that momentum will become self-sustainable and self-sufficient and allow you to ride all the way through that and beyond.
Yeah, that's good. That was a good 50-minute episode with jam-packed full of good stuff.
How do you guys handle flare-ups for autoimmune diseases? I'll let Nathan handle that one first.
On a case-by-case basis. I was talking to somebody one time that said Well, I just do the same thing because aren't they all kind of stemming from the same
Mm,
problem? Could not be any more
mm,
different. Um,
mm-hmm.
but first of all, mindset. The fact that you were talking about people having good mindset. So my mom was diagnosed with three different autoimmune diseases. The main one, scary one, being lupus. And honestly, through her health journey and lots of nutrition change, she is healthier than even before. She's walking more. She is eating fantastic. She completely rejected the idea that she was going to be defined by her disease and that her function was going to decline. Um, her rheumatologists and doctors, as she was asking about nutrition, they're like, that's not going to change anything. And now she's been in remission from lupus for like a decade and or longer. I think about a decade, and then improvements and a lot of other factors. So it starts with mentality, and it starts with the 5 pillars. And honestly, with autoimmune testing or autoimmune diseases, often testing of the nervous system, of food sensitivities, if that's a problem, is a good step as well. It usually requires a little bit more intense issues. And then I know things that I don't test for, like toxic mold or stuff like that. It could be another good route because maybe it's something even beyond that.
Correct. Big thing when it comes to autoimmune conditions is stress itself. Majority of the time, your immune system is attacking itself because there's something that's stressing it out to the point where it feels the need to attack itself. So identifying, trying to figure that thing out is a big piece of the puzzle. Um, and I don't know which autoimmune disease you're referencing. Um, I think I know that I think she mentioned autoimmune diabetes, terrible condition to have along with COVID long haulers. Um, it's also identifying like who are all the players involved in those processes from a physiology standpoint, and then identifying the pathology of it. Um, so, for example, with Hashimoto's and like T3, T4, TSH, majority of docs will look at just the TSH or the T3 and then determine whether or not you have hypo or hyperthyroidism. But they're not looking at the players involved in creating T3, T4, and TSH, which is um, brain, thyroid, liver,
Liver, yeah,
gut, and a cell. You have those 5 players are involved in creating those 3 things, and you get the T4 to T3 conversion happens in a cell. But people will just see a low T3 and think that they're not making enough TSH. Then they'll say you have hypothyroidism because you're not making T3. The reason why you have low T3 is more than likely because T4 isn't getting into the cell, more than likely due to you intaking a lot of omega-3 fatty acids,
or omega
gunking
6.
up your cellular membrane, and then they can't get transported through or at a rate that's high enough. And now we have that low thing. And then we have the low T3, and then you're probably consuming something. A lot of times too, like it could be like heavy metal toxicity, like something is firing that immune system up. A lot of it is inflammation. So it could be food they're eating, could be in the water that you're drinking, could be in the air that you're breathing, aka mold. I think majority of us are getting mold exposure and don't even know it. And so it's just identifying what those stressors are,
Yeah,
um,
definitely.
and then doing the necessary thing to mitigate it. So removing stress, it's identifying the stressor and then removing it.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Yeah, and
because
providing
it's something is
healing
causing.
too.
Right,
Like, and our
right.
we talk all the time about how our body is so equipped to help heal ourselves and facilitate that
Mm-hmm.
healing. And so, like with the gut, if we've removed an offender of maybe the food sensitivity, um, maybe we need to repopulate our gut bacteria. Maybe that's been depleted. But you really got to start with removing that stress if you're going to see things. You probably just can't just throw a probiotic at it. That's why they're not really like probiotics are inconclusive with IBS because, people are just trying to take a probiotic. Hopefully that goes away. And if they haven't addressed their nervous system, there's an overgrowth of bacteria already. If they're a food sensitivity causing inflammation, if they have food intolerance, throwing a supplement at it, probably won't fix everything. You gotta figure out the stress and the underlying cause, and then think about healing if there's something that is missing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I just plugged the 2 books. So Biohacking Your Brain, it's a blue cover, and then the other one, Fast Like a Girl. There's some autoimmune protocols in Fast Like a Girl, and a lot of explanations too. It's by Dr. Mindy Hells. She is awesome. That's how I learned a lot of stuff about autoimmune. But yeah, the stress is either physical, chemical, or emotional. So more than likely, if it's a physical stressor, that's in the top bone of the neck. If it's chemical stressor, more than likely from food. And if it's emotional stressor, then it's something rooted in your past that your body is kind of holding on to that is now converting those stressors into chemical and physical. So identifying the stress, and then from there, which thing in the 5 pillars can you do to mitigate that stress and remove that from being exposed to it? And then now we're in an environment that will be conducive for healing. It's one thing to have your body in that state, but it's also another one to have your external environment conducive for healing itself. You can't have one or the other. They need to be interlinked and working together with that. But yeah, that was good. That was
Good
pretty
episode. And I've got a 1, so I'm ready to take care of my next person and all the other people I got booked up for the rest of the day. We're gonna take this info, we're not gonna keep it to ourselves. We're gonna apply that in the real world. Help some people.
I got a patient at 1 as well. So I gotta get in on that. But thank you guys for tuning in and asking questions.
Yes, thank you.
Going on this, it sounds like we have more IBS and inflammation talk to do.
Yep.
So keep on tuning in. We do this every single Thursday at 12 p.m. Central. Whether you're watching this on YouTube or Facebook, if you're in the Nutritional Edge group, if you're not, go ahead and join that. That's what we stream through primarily. And like we said, we are looking to start doing challenges and in-person intensives moving forward, and just using this as kind of our launching pad for things that we have planned. So also thinking about like, what can we do now that's going to set us up 6 months from now, being in that frame of mind. That's one that I haven't necessarily been in myself over past month or so. So that was good for me to say and hear it for myself.
Thinking about the Italy trip.
Yeah, man.
You got like an after Italy plan.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, it's pretty much post. It's just gonna be a nice little separator from year 1 to year 2 in practice.
Yeah,
which is good.
Congrats.
I'm excited for that. Yep. So, well, friends.
All right.
Signing off. We got some peeps to go take care of. But like I said, appreciate y'all for tuning in, hanging out, asking questions, and engaging with us. And hopefully you guys got some good takeaways. I really hope you guys got some good takeaways from that. So
we'll see you next week.
Chris will
be in Italy.
Italiano.
Be drinking the wine.
Alrighty. That's funny. Alrighty, friends.